All right, prepare. It says preparing. I think we are,
We're good.
I think we're streaming.
Okay. Do I have to hit the other start button or not?
No, you're good. All
Okay.
right, prepare. It says preparing. I think we are,
We're good. All right, let's do it. Hey, everybody. This is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. We are in the final week of the Strongest Town tournament, our annual competition to name and celebrate the strongest town in the world, in the universe. I think I don't know where we would stop that. The world, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. Do we dare go that far? I don't know. We're starting to, John, as you and I have interacted with lately, learn more about the universe. So maybe this isn't the strongest town in the universe.
Yeah, it's very prideful of us to think that we could judge the pride of judge the strength of an alien town.
There's probably an alien city out there that is just really strong and awesome. So this is our annual tournament. This has been fascinating. We started with 16 different cities. We had them submit some stuff in writing. We read through that. Our membership voted. The audience voted. We cut that down to 8. We had them submit some photos. We took a look at those. We talked about them. We went back and forth. Again, another vote, down to 4 teams. We interviewed them on podcast, down to 2 this week. Oxford, Mississippi, and Lockport, Illinois. 2 ridiculously exciting places, things with a lot of great stuff to talk about, a lot of kind of unique challenges. And we interviewed them on Monday. That was phenomenal. This week, we've been trying to circle back and as part of kind of analyzing these cities and looking at this and getting us ready for what will be an amazing announcement when we pick our strongest town, when the votes pick our strongest town. We wanted to have a couple of our members come in and give some insight and have some conversation about these great places. So let's start there. Emma Durand Wood from Winnipeg joins us today. Emma, welcome to whatever we're calling this, the Strongest Town Festival of discussion. It's so nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I have read your stuff and been delighted by it. Like I said, when we started, we're almost neighbors. You're just a little bit north of us. I found it fascinating to get your insights on a Canadian city that has a lot of similarities. It's very nice to have you. Can you give people a little bit of sense of what you do in Winnipeg and kind of how maybe you came to Strong Towns?
Sure. Well, so I live here in Winnipeg. This is my adopted hometown. My husband's from here, so we're making our way together. And here I'm super involved in our local Love 30 campaign, which is the sort of metric version of the 20 is Plenty Slow the Traffic campaign. I'm also super involved with advocating for development and protection of the public tree canopy. So that takes up lots of my time. But really, we kind of, my husband and I both are both bloggers and both passionate in this path. And it was our brother-in-law who one day heard us talking about this kind of stuff and said, I think you guys would really like Strong Towns. And so it's been, I guess, about 3 years that we've been really framing what we do as a sort of a Strong Towns message. And both found that it was really great because it kind of gave us language to describe the things that we intuitively felt were working.
Yeah. I think what I like most about it, I feel like our site, Strong Towns, back in the very early kind of frenetic days where it was just me, was this kind of labor of mad passion. And, you know, time has cooled that a little bit. We now have this very professional approach and very professional staff. And I write a little bit less than I did in those frenetic days. I plug into your stuff and I feel that energy again. And it really excites me because you guys are both gifted writers, and the things you're describing with such wit and passion, it's really fun to plug into. So
thanks
a
lot.
You.
Well, something I would say too about Emma and Michelle's blogs is that they're clearly writing from a place of such love. Um,
True.
Michel's blogs are usually, if not always, written in the form of letters to his city, letters to his neighbors. And Emma's blog is called Winnipeg of My Heart. Like it is like there is so much love that is driving what they're doing, which I think is wonderful.
That is John Pattison. He is you're good. I don't even know what we call you anymore. He's my friend here at Strong Towns. He's the guy who's been organizing the contest kind of behind the scenes. And I wanted to have him on this discussion too, because he has some great insights into both of these cities. But before we get to that, I want to introduce our other guest, Katie Shackelford, lives now in St. Louis. I don't even know where you're from, but we first met in Peoria many years ago, where we hung out for a whole day. We rode around on buses. We walked around in neighborhoods. We sat in meeting rooms. We kind of liked each other a little bit, hanging out. And then we wound up with a group of friends going to a movie that night and seeing The Martian together, which you had read the book and said, this is my favorite. I subsequently read the book. I love it. I've made my kids read the book. So
it's a great book.
I kind of have these fond memories of bonding over movies and space and all this stuff with you.
Yes. And people talking in the movie theater.
Yeah. We both get annoyed by the same things, I think.
Yeah. Actually, with Chuck, we actually met in 2013. It's been, you may not recall, but way back at CNU in Salt Lake City, I had attended that conference by myself and was tagging along with Nate Hood and managed to end up in your crew. And so I remember you a little bit before we actually met, because I think that we found the worst Mexican restaurant in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was actually that was my 40th birthday that week. So it was kind of like they bought me a cake and it was a big kind of celebration. You turned 40. That's cool. I do remember that fondly.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And it was right before Nate had done his wonderful photography expose of taking his engagement photos in the suburbs.
Yeah. The genius. Oh man, we got so much mileage out of that. You are in St. Louis now. Can you tell us a little bit about the path that brought you there?
Sure. So I started out as an architect and then, an architecture student, and then ended up going into planning. My planning focus has always been on post-industrial cities. It's where I'm from. So my hometown is in Indiana, but I've moved around about a dozen times now, lived in 6 different states and at least 12 different cities. And my focus, really my work on legacy communities, those that are overlooked in the Midwest. I work for a consulting firm that serves Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri. We're called the Lockmuller Group. And though the firm is primarily engineering, it's about 250 engineers, we do have a planning staff, and we support that engineering with planning. And I really focus on using infrastructure as a catalyst for economic recovery and neighborhood stabilization. So, when we met, I was working for an innovation team for the city of Peoria. I've also worked for an MPO as a planner in that capacity, and then as a municipal planner, doing economic development and tourism and Main Street revitalization, because of course in small communities you wear many hats. And from there, I went on into consulting. So I've had a broad experience that's led me to see the good and bad of both sides of consulting and the public sector and how we can really improve those things.
You obtained some initials behind your name today.
I did.
Share those with us so that everybody knows.
So right before, I was a little late to logging on because I had just received the announcement that I qualified for the Professional Transportation Planner certification through ITE, and I am now the 760th person to receive that designation. About 30 to 40 people a year pass the test. So I really wasn't expecting to pass the test.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We need great transportation planners like you. So I'm grateful. I want to focus on these cities because we have started out with, I want to say 30 some that applied. There were 16 that made this tournament, and now we're down to 2. John, I want to start with you and just give me a sense, kind of an overview, maybe of these two places. And then I'm going to go to Emma and Katie and get kind of a little bit of a deeper dive. But talk a little bit about Lockport versus Oxford, and maybe even their path to getting here. You're the one who tallies the votes. You're the one who lets us know internally who won. Talk a little bit about the path that got us here.
Both places, I think I've heard you say this, Chuck, and I would agree. Like we can't lose with this matchup. Both of these cities are incredible. They're quite different from one another. I've never been to either town, but like the way that they've presented themselves is very different from each other. Lockport has really impressed me in that it is evidently going through the process of getting stronger. Oxford has so much going for it. It's a gorgeous city. The photos that they submitted in round 2 were just amazingly beautiful. It's actually a place that I've romanticized, for years, for its bookstores, for its literary history. But like I said, I've never actually been there. Oxford has the university right downtown. So they have, as the mayor said in the webcast on Monday, they have 25,000 residents, but they have 60,000 people living there and working there, day in, day out. They have 100,000 people who are coming in on weekends for sports activities. So they have lots of activity there, lots of things going for it. Lockport, has really had to work to get to where they are now. They have an amazing history, but you can see that they're in the process of becoming stronger. As the mayor said again on Monday in their webcast, he's actually leading a book club about the Strong Towns book for people in his town. And so they're obviously they're both changing, but Lockport is, this before and after photo is to me, it's indicative of the transformation that's happening in Lockport. Lockport is really taking those incremental steps with the resources that they have to get better. Oxford seems to be coming with a lot more resources at hand. And so they're taking a different approach.
I have to admit a couple things here. The first one is that when the mayor was on this week, these are pictures of Oxford, which are just amazing. When the mayor of Lockport was on this week, and he's like, "Hey, we were all about canals and boat traffic to Chicago," and I'm like, Lockport, why do we say these names? If this was a different language that I was learning and I put together the words lock and port, I would be like, well, I know exactly what's going on there. It took him saying that for me to really have it sink in. Obviously, a place that the two places that are coming at this very differently. Emma, can we go to you? I would like to get your kind of first impressions of both of these places. Obviously one being a southern city with a lot of historic roots, a big university, another one being a more northern central kind of city. What jumps out at you? What stands out to you? What are kind of your major takeaways from both of these places?
Yeah, I guess I would sort of echo John a little bit in that it sort of seems like Oxford maybe sort of comes into it with an advantage, whereas Lockport is sort of that scrappy little town that's just trying to make it. But what I really took away from watching the interviews and reading everything was that they both have this great attitude. With Oxford, I heard the mayor sort of several times talk about how they really have this problem-solving mindset. That the answer is never no, it's how can we get there. And with Lockport, I was really impressed that they said, like, we want to do great things, but we really want to make sure there's quality there. And so looking at the big picture, the long term, not just doing little stopgap measures, but really focusing on what can we do that's going to really be good in the big picture.
Katie, I kind of sense that you, I wonder if you've been to Lockport, because I think you've been in this area. I kind of sense that maybe, or I am assuming that maybe you're going to have some insights on Lockport that would be a little bit different than other people, because this seems like the kind of city that you are an expert in. Talk a little bit about these two and how you're approaching them, and kind of your, I guess, first take.
Yeah, my first take has to be that regardless of who wins the tournament, both of these cities are winners. The work that they've done and the way that they've invested in their communities really shines through. But I agree with what's been said. You can't really compare. They're not apples to apples. And one of the things that really stands out for me for Lockport is how much the community has really taken hold of this initiative, this Strongest Towns, and provided their input. I was really impressed to see in that second round how it was really testimonies from members of the community that stood up. So it's not just the city that's carrying this banner, it's really the members. Probably the other thing that I take into account when looking at both of these is the context in which these cities are thriving, and the obstacles that they have to overcome, because both come from states that are not experiencing the same growth and vibrance that these communities have. So they're really outliers within their regions. And in Lockport's case in particular, though I haven't been there, I know that looking at that before and after, you have to imagine that's during the state's budget crisis. So they made things happen when it was really difficult to make things happen in Illinois. And that alone stood out to me as a really big indicator of their strength and their motivation. Obviously, as a lover of book clubs, the idea that the mayor is taking the initiative to educate the public is a really big step, because I think part of knowing what a strong town is making sure that the community has a shared understanding of that strong town. Oxford has so much going for it, and it's really more of a, how can they push the envelope and really be trendsetters in new ways of thinking. And so I'm totally impressed by both. And I think that whoever wins this competition is going to be a standout across the country.
Katie, let me stick with you for a sec, because I want to focus on a few things here. But the first one I'd like to talk about is the core downtown, because I have to say, having visited hundreds and hundreds of core downtowns over the last decade as part of working with strong towns, Oxford has been gifted like this gorgeous endowment of a place. And I feel like in one hand, it kind of creates this unlevel playing field in which they've been given this thing that is truly amazing, and they haven't screwed it up. And you kind of got to applaud them for that. On the other hand, when I look at Lockport, I kind of feel like here's a place I can relate to. Here's a place that, in terms of projecting something from a strong towns approach, this is what a lot of cities are going through, which is we walked away from our downtown. Now we've had to come back to it. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on kind of their core makeup of that space, and maybe anything that struck you as being specifically pertinent?
Thinking about Lockport and its downtown, it's really the pressures that the city is facing on the edges that makes the downtown so special. And so this reinvestment in place and this focus on community and building spaces for people is what stood out most to me, because it's very easy to say, especially in distressed communities or those that are, the state of Illinois is in population decline, to see that revenues are falling and to chase any development you can get and sacrifice quality for the bottom line. And I think that's what stood out most to me in Lockport, is the ability to turn away some really big investments for the quality of the community. And so seeing that they're making an effort to support small businesses, to give them the resources they need to use their CARES Act funding in a way that would understanding even how the financial resources that were coming in would affect their community and the resources that they would need. That really stood out to me. The idea of, offering valet parking, that was really unique, and to see that it was worth it. Instead of investing in parking garages and parking decks and surface parking and really taking up that space that's for the people, that they identified, hey, we can do valet parking and it's so much more cost efficient. That really surprised me, and I was really happy to hear about that.
That was a takeaway for me too. I didn't know that aspect. I'm like, wow, I've got a new trick. Emma,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts here on these downtowns?
It's just so plain that they both recognize that the downtown is really the heart and the key to a strong town, and in a way that feels very foreign to me in the places that I've lived. So it's really heartening to see that. I really loved both of them emphasizing how they were helping businesses particularly through the last year of like really kind of the city putting their money where their mouth was in terms of supporting the businesses with, expanding their outdoor dining and making it a really pleasant place, helping them promote themselves. I thought, it was just really, really cool to see.
John, I want you to weigh in on this too. I want to kind of ask you, because you and I, internally, I know had a little bit of a soft spot for Bismarck, simply because Bismarck is such an active downtown association, such an active downtown group. They made it to the Final Four this year and went up against Lockport. And, from the numbers, kind of got clobbered by Lockport a little bit, even though, Bismarck is this great place with all this energy. Talk a little bit about these entrants and kind of the makeup and the composition of their city, and maybe some of the things that you saw dealing with them behind the scenes even.
Well, I knew that whoever was going up against Lockport, I knew this after round one, was going to have their work cut out for them, just simply because of the very impressive get out the vote efforts that they have. I don't know how they're doing it after the contest. No matter who wins, I'm almost going to ask. I think I want to ask, how are you getting out so many votes? And we dedupe these votes, so we know, we take out all of the duplicates, because you can only vote once per round per matchup. It has been so impressive, and Oxford has too. This is almost the two best get out the vote cities are now meeting head to head. And I just did a quick look. I'm not, but I did a quick look this morning to see just how many thousands of votes have been cast. It is so close between these two. So there is there's a ton of enthusiasm. Both towns have been awesome to work with behind the scenes. This contest moves so fast. And it's been really cool that from the beginning, the mayors have been behind, have been supportive of these applications. They've been their names have been on the applications. Both mayors were interviewed in round 3, and again here in the championship round. So there's a lot of enthusiasm for this. I was just thinking, as you were talking about their downtowns, we at Strong Towns talk a lot about not squandering our inheritance, the inheritance that previous generations have given us, for example, in our downtowns. And I think no matter where people are coming from in their own communities, they're probably going to find a town in our matchup, in this championship matchup, a town that they can relate to. Because as was mentioned, Oxford inherited this incredible downtown, and they've maintained it. They have kept it up. They have not squandered that inheritance. Lockport inherited this town, as Chuck mentioned, they kind of walked away from it, but now they're getting back. They're getting stronger again. I have a feeling that for our members, for our readers, our viewers, their town is probably somewhere on that spectrum somewhere. Did we be in the downtown and we walked away from it? No matter where you're coming from, there's a lot that you can learn from these two finalists.
I want to dig in a little bit to transportation, and Emma, I'm going to start with you. I was kind of struck by, Oxford being this university town. I've been in some near you. One that jumps out at me just in thinking about it, because I spent a lot of time there, is like Akron, Ohio. Katie, you probably maybe are familiar a little bit with Akron, and just how they have a university there, but it sits on its own place. It's not really connected to the downtown. The energy isn't there. You go to a place like South Bend, where you've got, Notre Dame, you've got this great university, again, a little bit isolated. They've done some things now to bring that energy into the core downtown. It seems like Oxford never lost that. Like they really have kept that energy, and transportation is a big part of it. Can you talk a little bit about transportation and give your own focus to this? What stuck out to you? Was there anything that you found in particular that was meaningful in either of these places?
Yeah, I mean the transit ridership numbers that they shared for Oxford are just incredible. I think she said 1.5 million trips a year, and that's just so great. So they really get it, that this is a absolutely critical service that the town offers. And then I hope it was Lockport, talking about the connectivity between themselves and the other nearby towns, and being able to see themselves as, part of this greater whole, and that, connectivity helps everybody. Yeah, they both seem to see the importance that transportation plays in their cities, and are investing in it.
I know Lockport, Katie, talked about the mayor Steve did talk about the large trucks coming through town, and how they've had to deal with that issue. That's one of those things that, as a small town person, or a mid-sized town person where the highway runs right through the city, is always a challenge. I found it like unique and refreshing the way they talked about this. What struck you in terms of transportation in these places?
Well, I still say the valet parking really blew my mind.
Yeah.
But in both places, they had different focuses. And I think it was really great to see, obviously, Oxford focusing on transit. When you have a population that's so young, and really they come to the university many times without a car. And how do you survive in a community without a car? I think that both have taken a good look at it. Oxford was really impressive to me at that. They've addressed the problem of automobile dependency. You don't need to be a car driver to thrive in Oxford. And I think that makes a huge difference. When it comes to Lockport, I'd say they're a little further in the evolution, a little further back. They're focusing on bicycles and pedestrians, which is also a wonderful thing. So both, they focused on different areas of mobility, addressing some challenges with the truck movement is definitely an issue for Lockport, as you don't want to divert that traffic outside of town. It can decimate a community to move those vehicles, because where the trucks go, other cars go too, for that convenience factor. So both are doing great. I'd say in the case of transportation, Oxford really stood out to me as just having a really great connected system, and having the ability to look holistically at mobility as a solution, not just mobility for cars.
Right.
Yeah.
John, I know you and I have talked a lot about, especially in the very early phase last year and then this year, as we're picking cities, that, strong towns, and what we're looking for in this contest is not places that are perfect or fully formed, or like, this is the strongest town because it has reached this plateau of greatness, but that it is really a process. What are your best practices? What are the things you're doing? What are the difficult decisions you're making? Are you moving in the right direction? Can you talk a little bit about how that went into, even at the very beginning of this contest, whittling down? I think we had 34 entries, or I can't remember how many exactly we had, but whittling it down to 16. What were kind of some of the things that you went through to make that cut and make that determination? And why did, a place like Oxford and a place like Lockport stand out to you as worthy entrants?
Yeah. And just to clarify, like I wasn't the only staff person.
Oh no,
who
it
went
was
through
all
them.
you. Right to John at strongtowns.org.
No, yeah. So I wasn't the only one, but we did go through, and like I created a spreadsheet where we kind of ranked the cities, and yeah, I was looking at the process, because we say that there's no perfectly strong town, and so we're looking for the cities that are doing the best with what they have, and there is, I think, there's a different kind of challenge when a city is coming in with an abundance of resources, versus like like a scrappier city, a city where the abundance of resources might not be so apparent. I believe that Lockport has an abundance of resources. It's showing us that. It's people, it's like the creativity, like they have an abundance of creativity and grit, and that, that might not show up in the same way that it does for a place like Oxford. We were talking about this with Bentonville too. Like Bentonville was was like in our our among our 16 finalists, and of course, like known for being the home of Walmart, and there's a lot of money there. And we were talking internally, there is, I think, and this is, I think our staff, our colleague Michelle pointed this out, there is a different kind of challenge that comes from having like a ton of financial resources available. You have to make smarter decisions in a different way. And so because all of these different applicants were coming with their own bespoke or unique and particular challenges and just do the best you can.
I want to ask both Katie and Emma to talk a little bit about this process of becoming a Strong Towns and some of the things that maybe stick out to you as both things that seem to be going right, but maybe things that seem to be a challenge. Katie, I'll start with you, and maybe to tee this up. One of the things that the mayor of Oxford said, and it was a little bit of a red flag to me, is she started talking about annexation and very large annexations and very aggressive annexations. And I'm kind of like, oh, that's very interesting, because that's very difficult to pull off in a way that is going to make your town healthier over time. Was there anything that stood out to you as you look through all these different things that were things that maybe were a little problematic, like oh, that gave me pause and was something I'd maybe think differently about?
Yeah, I would say the same thing you just mentioned was the biggest red flag that I heard throughout the interviews was essentially Oxford almost doubling in size to address their, the demand for new residents to come in. And I think one of the things that I think is really, really important to identify about a strong town is being a strong town is not about being a wealthy town. And we really need to identify that money is not strong. Money is money.
We're all, everyone, when you said that, I think that the live stream is only going to show one face at a time. But when you said that, all three faces out here nodded, like strong towns are not about being a wealthy town. So yes.
Yes, strong. And that's important to note, that being wealthy is wonderful. That's a great accomplishment, but it does not make you resilient. It does not make you equitable. And I think some of the things we need to think about, critically when it comes to strong towns is, are we serving those in need? And, are we growing? One of the things that the mayor of Oxford mentioned that caught my attention was, we really enforce this high quality of product. We keep our housing standard really high, and we have a very high land value. Well, those are all great things, but when it comes to affordability, are these things for the people? And one of my favorite quotes ever comes from the former mayor of Charleston, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he spoke at CNU in Detroit. And, his quote that stood out was, the best things are for the people. It's not about building wealth for your residents as much as it's, is the quality of life across your community a high standard for your residents, not just for your wealthy residents. And I think that's one of the challenges that Oxford faces is how do we address the need of students? How do we address the need of our lower income population in a way that also provides them with quality? And with the Illinois community, it's in Lockport and throughout Illinois, I will say it's easy to get discouraged. There's a lot of reasons that state and federal policies can be discouraging for these communities. And being creative, being open, working with DOTs and working with your adversaries is really important. And so to keep up the spirit, I think one of the things that really stands out in Lockport as a strong community, it's not just about your infrastructure and your value, it's about your people. Do your people feel empowered to make change? Do they feel like they can contribute? Do they feel like they're being heard and represented? I think both communities have made an effort to do that. And one thing I would say is, during the pandemic, both kind of relied on technology as their solution. And so I would have liked to see, there are many people out there who don't have access to the technology that kind of we've relied on. Zoom, we're on Zoom right now. How do you address their needs? Your older populations, those without access to internet, they still exist and we need to serve them too.
Right. Emma, what was there anything that kind of stood out to you or was a red flag or said like this is a challenge I think maybe they'd need to look at a little bit differently?
There wasn't any real red flags for me. I guess one thing that I thought was both like really cool, but also a huge job to tackle was in Lockport, they talked about having purchased this 180-acre brownfield right beside the downtown.
Yeah.
And they started to make the maker, what did they call it? The maker pad, which is the shipping containers, which is really, really cool. Great idea, but there's still a lot more space. And so if it were me, I would be looking at it thinking like, oh boy, how, what's our plan for this? Because if it just sits there, does that, what does that say to the community? But at the same time, it's a real challenge for what you can put there. So it wasn't a red flag, but just, something that seems like it's going to be a big job to keep working at.
John, I want to talk a little bit about the member voting and the way that the voting kind of shapes this tournament. I know we've mentioned this and we've talked about it. I don't know how much it's gotten out into the general public though, and how we kind of weigh the voting. It's in the rules and it's in the fine print. We tell our members over and over. Can you explain a little bit? Because then I want to ask you a couple of questions about our membership and the way that they've gone about assessing this. Can you just describe how we go about tallying the votes here?
Yep. So this is the 6th year we've done the contest. And in 5 of those 6 years, we have weighted. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable.
We're getting you just fine right now.
All right, cool. So in 5 of those 6 years, I believe we've weighted the member voting so that member votes comprise 50% of the total. And we do that because we love our members. We trust our members. We think that getting the members, weighting those votes will help if the truly strongest towns come out in the end. We didn't do it last year. We missed it. Actually, we had an amazing finalist with a fantastic champion last year, but we missed it kind of throughout. And so we wanted to make sure we did it again this year. Yeah, I put it everywhere. I put it on the landing page, at pretty much every single post, because I want folks to know that there is that we really do trust our members and that this is something that we and our members take seriously.
I don't want you to name names, but there have been a number of instances in this tournament, and I know going back a couple of years ago, it was very prevalent then, where the member voting actually changed the popular voting, or actually weighed and flipped the contest. How do you interpret that when that happens? How do you read that when that's the outcome?
Man, I really want to be careful with how I answer this question.
Just to say, I don't think we've ever had that happen in the championship round. I think the championship round has always had members and non-members like aligned. But go ahead, you can be a little bit indelicate. I'll clean up your mess if you're.
So I think that here's how I would interpret it. If let's say town A has a great get out the vote, they have a lot of residents, they're splashing it everywhere on social media and everywhere. Like they can generate a lot of sort of local boosterism for this contest. And at the same time, their town may not be that strong. I mean, if they made it into the finalists, the 16 finalists, they had a lot going for them anyway. But we do rely on our members who have been like not only like immersed in our message for so long, but really like shaping our message, spreading the strong towns approach. Like we do rely on their expertise around the strong towns approach to help sort of guide the contest. We have had a few instances this year where the member vote and the non-member vote have been wildly different. I think what's really interesting, again, we have like about 24 hours left in the voting for this one. I did look at it today. Not only is the non-member vote out of thousands and thousands of votes cast, just a couple hundred votes apart, the member vote is just a couple votes apart. If it flips like member to non-member this time, it's at this point at least, it's like it could just go either way because it's so very, very close.
Yeah. Katie, please.
Just one thought to add, and this is what I kind of picked up from reading the Strongtown members' reviews, is Strongtown members tend to dig a little bit deeper. And, being on both sides of this argument, you can see like you're not going to show your deep, dark skeletons when you submit to be the strongest town. And some of the things that the members have found are things that weren't submitted by the city. And doing just a little bit of evaluation can kind of highlight some of those red flags or identify areas where, they're actually stronger than they may seem. And one of the things that we like to hit on, especially I think in the Strong Towns messages, look at the budget. How are they spending their money? Is it really reflected in the way that they shared that narrative? And if not, where's the disconnect there?
Yeah. I want to give everyone a chance to talk about just intangibles, things that I haven't raised or asked you about yet. And then I've got a final question for you. So Emma, maybe we can start with you. Is there anything that we haven't been able to raise here or discuss that you think is important that people think about or think through in regards to either one of these or both of these places?
Good question. I don't know. I appreciated both mayors. I think Mayor Tannehill maybe said it a little bit more explicitly, but I appreciated that both of them really talked about having a sense of humility, and that, to be a leader, you really have to listen to what your residents say. And so she talked about accepting when you make mistakes and owning up to them, and then moving on and trying to do better. And the mayor of Lockport also emphasized that. So that was just sort of an overall sense that I got from both of them, and that really it's all about the people in the end.
Yeah. Katie, anything that stood out to you as like an intangible or something we haven't brought up or haven't had a chance to discuss yet?
Yeah, one thing that really comes to my mind is a strong town really isn't a strong mayor. It's not a strong city hall. It's a strong community. And I am constantly looking at these communities and evaluating who's the gatekeeper, who decides whose ideas and opinions really make the cut. And are we empowering our citizens to be leaders and really take an active role in participation? I noticed that in Oxford, they have a number of committees, really diversifying the way that people engage, but who's the gatekeeper for that committee? Is it truly open and inclusive, or is there someone deciding whose opinion counts and whose doesn't? And the same thing in Lockport. I like the idea of democratizing information through the book clubs, but can we go further? Can we really empower our residents and build strong communities beyond just what you can report in your infrastructure and your housing and how you support small businesses? Are you supporting creating a strong network of people?
I'm not going to ask John who he's going to vote for because he's the guy running the contest, and I don't, keep that to yourself. I do want to ask the two of you that, but before we do that, let me ask John just of if you were to handicap this race 5 weeks ago, looking at these places, what was your sense of who was going to end up in this final competition? Like where did you think we would be today? Because I certainly had my sense of how it would end up, and it's not this group. I'm thrilled about this group, and I'll close with why at the end. But where would you have handicapped this thing?
I'm not surprised that Oxford is in here. I think because it does have just so much going for it. It's a beautiful place. It's a well-known town. Although had I thought about it in the context of previous winners, I might not have suggested that, because I think a lot of folks don't know Watertown, South Dakota, or Traverse City, Michigan, or Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Some of our previous winners who we refer back to again and again and again in our Strong Towns content, because not only were they past winners, but they continue to get stronger and stronger and are models. So that should have sparked in me that I really don't know. I shouldn't try to handicap who's going to be here. Lockport, I would not have necessarily predicted that they would be in the finals, but I'm so glad they are. I find the contrast between these two towns so interesting.
Yeah, I'm that way too. In fact, I look back at the bracket and I think that I discounted Lockport every step along the way. And now that we're here at the finals, I'm so glad they're here. It just really have taught me something. Emma, can I start with you? Do you have a favorite here? Is there one that you're going to have to cast a vote? Is there one that you would lean towards and make the case for why that would be?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say they both seem like awesome places. I've never been to either of them, and as a Canadian, I'm not even really familiar with the big picture of who their comparables would be. I can't even necessarily think of places here that seem like they would be comparable. But I think I do know at the end of this discussion sort of who I'm leaning towards. Do you want me to say?
Yeah, no, I think that's legit. You've done great analysis up to this point, and I think we've presented a very fair case. But everybody has an opinion, and we would love to hear yours. Well,
I think that with everything that I know from reading and watching and listening, I think my vote would go to Lockport. I think they are just, I guess I find it just inspiring, working through their challenges and what they're starting, the position they're starting from, or how they're evolving, I guess, is really cool. And seeing the things that they're doing to really invest in their downtown and not just top-down things, like really empowering the people who live there. Like those before and after pictures that John showed are just, I wrote that down in my notes. It's incredible. And you just multiply that and it's just going to keep going. So I think I like them. They seem like sort of the underdog, scrappy, gritty, and I hope that they win.
Awesome. Katie, where are you at right now?
I struggle making this decision because it really is hard to compare the two. And I think both have so much going for them. Like I said in the beginning, the personal narratives that are coming out of Lockport are really compelling for me because the city is made up of people and their stories. And so combined with the red flag of annexation out of Oxford, I'm probably leaning towards Lockport, but I do think that Oxford has so much going for it that it's, if anything, I would challenge them. They really are leading the way. They're in some cutting edge stuff. And how can they do more? How can they really take, strong when you're under growth pressure and really trying to maintain a quality of life is so different than strong when you're trying to recover and reestablish yourself. So I guess I would say I'm leaning towards Lockport, but I'm happy to embrace both communities.
Katie, if people want to get a hold of you, follow your work, maybe even hire you to help them out with some stuff,
Sure.
I would love people to do that. Where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Obviously, Katie Shackelford is my name. I just updated it with my new letters right before I jumped on. You can also tweet me. My Twitter handle is KLShack, and you'll probably find a lot of otter content because I really, really like otters. So mixed in with some planning content, you'll get some otters.
Awesome. Why otters? They're just cool animals?
They're super cool.
I think they are super cool. I would agree with you. They're pretty versatile. They're like sleek beavers, right?
They're better than beavers.
Okay, I'll accept that. Emma, people want to get a hold of you, follow your blog, follow the great writing that you're doing. What would be the best way to go about doing that?
Sure. Well, probably on Twitter at Emma E. Wood. And then my blog is winnipegohmyheart.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. I feel like with this contest, we are blessed with so many great entries. I look back and I know John and I both had a soft spot for Sleepy Hollow, which didn't make it out of the first round. I think we were kind of pining to go there, have maybe a majestic literary sense of what that place should be. I know I have a very soft spot for Bismarck simply because it's the first place that invited me to come and give a curbside chat years ago. And has kept so much in touch over the years and I think really progressed and done so many things. Bentonville was such a fascinating place because of this juxtaposition of, the Walmarts and the kind of big system, but then having this, kind of break with that tradition and really focusing on building a wonderful place. Oxford, I have been to, and I have actually taken video of and shared that on our YouTube channel as this amazing place. One of the things that stuck out to me when I was there was the incremental development that they were doing kind of naturally in their core downtown and adjacent to it, and how it really fit the Strong Towns message. And then, of course, Lockport has really inspired me, kind of in the way that Muskegon did years ago when Muskegon won this tournament, where you looked at this place that by every statistic that you would come to is down on their luck, has kind of had its better days, has peaked, and now is way off its highs. But when you go there, you find this energy and this love and this passion and all of this creativity going on to solve problems that all of us are struggling with. So I'm with all of you. I think we can't lose. I'm going to keep in my heart who I have already voted for, because I'm going to go and celebrate with the winner, whoever that is, and it will be a great day and a lot of fun. John, any final thoughts you want to share?
Just a reminder that voting closes tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Time, both for members and for non-members. And so members, if you haven't voted yet, check your email. Like Alexa sent out a direct link to your voting form. Non-members, definitely go to the Monday's matchup webcast. That's where you can cast your vote. We've already had thousands of votes cast. It's going to be really close, and as well it should be.
Thanks, John. Emma, thank you so much for being here and being part of this. I appreciate your insights. It was great to hear from you.
Thanks for having me.
And Katie, likewise. So nice to see you again. We're going to have to catch a movie again soon.
That's right. Thank you guys so much for having us on. It was great to discuss these communities and see you again.
Yes, thank you.
The two of you provided such great insight. Thank you so much for for doing this. Katie, thank you for providing the member commentary earlier in the contest. I love those.
Oh, it's my favorite part of this whole
Yeah.
thing is the member commentary. It's the smartest. How do we get such awesome members? Like really, it's a wealth of enormity of riches, isn't it, John?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good luck.